Everyone has a breaking point. Mine came on a Tuesday morning, just 10 days before Christmas. The snow was still fresh on the sidewalks of Vancouver when my phone rang, jolting me from my morning routine. "Oh, you didn't know about the Whistler trip?" my younger sister Tessa said, her voice laced with exaggerated surprise. "I thought Mom told you. We're all going next week. Mom, Dad, Evan, and me. Someone needs to watch the pups while we're gone though. Mom said she'd ask you." I froze, halfway through stirring cream into my coffee. The mug trembled in my hand as the words sank in. Jenna Rowe, their eldest daughter, was being asked to stay behind and dog sit while my entire family went on a luxury holiday. Without me. Again. "No, Tessa. Mom hasn't said a word about any trip," I replied, my voice steady but tight. "And she definitely didn't mention watching Rocket and Mango." Tessa giggled. "You know how she is. Probably just forgot. But you're not busy, right? You always say you like staying in the city over the holidays." I didn't answer right away. My mind drifted to all the family dinners in the past few months. The cryptic conversations, the sudden silences when I entered the room, the awkward glances exchanged across the table. It all made sense now. They had planned it without me. That evening, my mom finally called. "Sweetheart," she began far too cheerfully, "we need a little favor." "Let me guess," I said, my voice sharp. "You need me to watch the dogs while you're off skiing in Whistler." There was a pause. Then a laugh. "Oh, so Tessa told you." "Yes, it would be such a help. Rocket gets so anxious at the kennel, and Mango needs her insulin shots on a strict schedule. We'll only be gone 8 days. You'd be doing us such a big favor." She kept talking about lift passes and mountain spas, as if she hadn't just confirmed that they deliberately left me out. Not even a half-hearted, "We wish you could come." Just logistics and dog food instructions. "I'll think about it," I said, though I already knew my answer. My fingers had started typing before I'd hung up. Flights. Hotels. I wasn't staying behind this time. That night, while my family counted down days to the slopes, I stumbled across a sale on flights to Kyoto, Japan. The very place I'd dreamed of visiting since college. A seat was open. The price. Almost too perfect. My cursor hovered. And then it clicked. The next morning, my phone lit up with messages. "Tessa, Mom says you're being weird about the dogs. Just help out, Jenna. You don't even like skiing." Another, "It's not like you have travel plans." Little did she know, I had 3 weeks of unused vacation time and a blog followed by over 20,000 people who cared more about my perspective than my own family ever had. Later that night, my dad called. "Pumpkin, your mom's really counting on you. The kennel's already closed out for the holidays. Rocket didn't eat last time we left him there, remember? Did any of you consider inviting me on the trip?" I asked quietly. His silence spoke louder than words. "Well, we just figured you'd be too busy. Tessa mentioned you probably couldn't get the time off." Just like I was too busy during my college graduation party that never happened because Tessa had to be flown to Paris for her self-discovery trip. "That's not fair," he mumbled. "No," I said. "What's not fair is being treated like the family's emergency backup plan instead of a member." That night, as the snow thickened outside my apartment window, I stared at my confirmed flight to Kyoto. 8 days. Alone. Free. And for the first time in years, truly seen, if not by them, then by myself. This time, they'd have to figure things out without me. The sound of my suitcase wheels hummed over the hardwood floor as I dragged it from the back of my closet. Dust floated in the winter light streaming through the window, as if the air itself knew something was shifting. I hadn't traveled this far in years, at least, not for myself. Every flight I'd taken since college had been tied to business, weddings, or family emergencies. Never just escape. As I packed, I avoided my phone. The notifications hadn't stopped since I'd said I'd think about it. There were guilt trips from Mom, condescending texts from Tessa, even a group chat message from Dad with a link to a kennel discount, just in case I changed my mind. None of them asked where I was going. None of them cared why I might not want to be left behind. Only one thing mattered to them, that I filled the space they had left open, like a puzzle piece they only remembered when one corner didn't fit. I placed my camera bag carefully into the suitcase and zipped it up, feeling an unexpected wave of calm. For once, I wasn't waiting around for their approval. For once, I had a plan that had nothing to do with their comfort. Just before dinner that evening, I arrived at my parents' house. They didn't expect me. The living room was filled with shopping bags and winter gear, gloves, ski masks, expensive coats still in their boxes. Rocket and Mango barked as I entered, but no one else noticed right away. When I stepped into the dining room, my mother looked up mid-sentence. "Jenna," she said, startled, "we didn't think you were coming tonight." "I thought I should come and clear something up," I said calmly. "You'll need to make other arrangements for the dogs." My dad frowned. "What do you mean?" "I won't be here," I said, pulling out my phone and showing them the itinerary. "I'm going to Kyoto. 8 days. I leave the same day you do." The silence that followed was louder than any argument we'd ever had. My mother's fork hovered in midair. Tessa blinked, lips slightly parted. "You can't just leave," Mom finally said. "What about Rocket's anxiety? And Mango's shots?" "That sounds like a you problem," I replied evenly. "Evan's allergic to dogs," Tessa blurted. "Sounds like poor planning," I answered, folding my coat neatly over my arm. My mother stood. "You're being selfish. You know how much we depend on you." "That's exactly the problem," I said. "You depend on me, but you don't value me. There's a difference." I turned to go, but my father's voice stopped me. "This isn't like you, Jenna. You're not impulsive." I looked back at him and gave a soft smile. "Maybe I'm not changing. Maybe you're just finally seeing me." Back home, I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop. My latest blog post, Why I Chose Japan Over a Family Ski Trip, had gone live an hour ago. It was already climbing in views. At the bottom of the post, a comment appeared. From an anonymous user, "Sounds like your family never deserved your loyalty in the first place." I didn't reply, but I did stare at the blinking cursor for a long time. Not because I agreed or disagreed, but because for the first time, I didn't feel alone in my experience. By the time I crawled into bed, I had 40 new followers, 3 travel sponsorship emails, and a mind buzzing with anticipation. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, I began to thaw. And far away, in a house I used to call home, the realization was starting to sink in. Jenna wasn't staying behind this time. They'd left her out, and now they'd have to deal with what that meant. The air in Kyoto was nothing like Vancouver. Crisp, fragrant with cedar and incense, it greeted me like a soft exhale from a world I'd only seen in photographs. I stepped out of the Kansai airport and into a city that felt like poetry carved into stone and wood. I had made it. And for the first time in years, I wasn't arriving to meet anyone, to serve any purpose but my own. My boutique hotel sat on a quiet street in the Higoshiyama district, just a short walk from the Philosopher's Path. A place that, until now, had only existed in the folds of my imagination and my Pinterest boards. The innkeeper bowed deeply as he handed me the key. My room smelled of tatami mats and fresh linen. A single window framed the rooftops below, and beyond them, the soft haze of morning mountains. I unpacked slowly, savoring the silence. There were no barking dogs, no last-minute requests, no one demanding my time. My phone buzzed with another guilt-soaked message from Mom, which I ignored. I had already arranged for Mrs. Lau, my pet-loving neighbor, to take care of Rocket and Mango. Paid in full. Instructions printed. Keys delivered. My family didn't know yet. They hadn't asked. Later that day, I wandered through Maruyama Park, camera in hand, clicking instinctively. A lone fox statue in a shrine courtyard. A weathered monk brushing leaves from the temple steps. Paper lanterns glowing as the sky dimmed. My heart beat slower, more freely, with every step. And my camera. Oh, it sang. Light in Kyoto wasn't just illumination. It was mood. It was story. By nightfall, I uploaded my first batch of photos and crafted a post titled Asterisk, a room without barking. Asterisk, it was gentle. Reflective. A slow meditation on presence, on solitude, on what it meant to be still. I didn't mention my family. Not directly. But the subtext lingered between every image and word. And my readers? They felt it. The comments rolled in faster than usual. This is your best work yet. I can feel the peace through the screen. Thank you for this breath of air. And then, in a blink, a notification I hadn't expected. My post had been shared by a travel magazine's Instagram account, followed by a message requesting permission to republish. My chest tightened, not from nerves, but from something close to validation. Just before bed, I called Mrs. Lau. How are the dogs? Oh, Rocket's sleeping by the heater like a prince. Mango's eating like she's never been fed before. They're just fine. She paused, then chuckled. Your mother came by again. Brought another blanket for Rocket. I think she's more anxious than the dog. Thank you for being kind to her, I said, trying not to let my guilt crawl in. I know she's not easy. She's not evil, dear, Mrs. Lau replied. She just doesn't like when things happen without her control. After we hung up, I stared at the ceiling. Kyoto was everything I dreamed it would be. But part of me still felt the pull of home, not to return, but to redefine it. I wasn't sure if it would ever be a place again. Maybe home, for me, was now a moment. A city. A click of a shutter. Outside, the wind rustled through the pine trees beyond the temple walls. My phone buzzed again. Tessa this time. Mom's panicking. Can't believe you actually left. They're saying they might cancel the trip. I stared at the screen, then turned the phone over, silencing it. Let them feel the absence they created. Tomorrow, I'd visit the bamboo forest. Alone. And free. The Arashiyama bamboo grove whispered like a secret. Towering green stalks swayed gently above my head as I walked the gravel path alone, the filtered morning light painting the air in soft, shifting emeralds. Every sound was hushed, softened by the density of nature. It felt like stepping into a dream, a place where no one could find me, not even my own thoughts. I raised my camera and took the first photo. Then another. And another. I lost track of time, of steps, of the messages that kept buzzing in my pocket. It wasn't until I sat on a low bench at the grove's edge, catching my breath, that I finally pulled out my phone. 8 missed messages. 3 from my mother, 1 from Tessa, and surprisingly, 4 from my father. Tessa, seriously, Jenna? You couldn't have waited until after the trip. Mom, I can't relax here knowing the dogs are with a stranger. What if something happens? Dad's were different. Shorter. Less rehearsed. Your mom's not taking this well. She brought Rocket's bed to the hotel. Maybe we should have done this differently. Call when you can. For a second, I stared at the last one. The tone wasn't angry. It wasn't even pleading. It felt like a question wrapped in a sigh. I didn't reply. Instead, I uploaded the day's photographs. A tunnel of green, a child touching a stalk with reverence, an elderly man sketching the forest floor. I titled the post, Shadows Beneath the Pines, and included a caption that simply read, Sometimes, you have to walk alone to hear your own voice again. That post exploded. Within hours, a digital editor from a major Japanese travel magazine sent me a message. They wanted to run a full feature using my photos and personal narrative. I was stunned. Not just because of the opportunity, but because of how easily the world opened up when I stopped waiting for permission. That evening, I treated myself to tea at a small cafe overlooking the Kotsura River. The waitress recognized me from the blog. You're the Canadian photographer, yes? She asked in careful English. I saw your post this morning. Very peaceful. I smiled, caught off guard. Thank you. That means a lot. You make Kyoto feel alive, she said, setting down the tea. Even for us who live here. Her words stayed with me as I sipped the warm matcha and watched the sky turn shades of lavender. I thought of my family, not out of longing, but with quiet observation, like an old photograph you finally put in a drawer. Back in my room, I found a long email from my father waiting in my inbox. Your mother is miserable. She keeps trying to hide it, but it's obvious. She even called the kennel again, just to see if a last-minute cancellation came up. But I need to say something she won't. We should have invited you. Not because of the dogs. Not because we needed help. But because you're our daughter, and you matter. I think we forgot that somewhere along the way. He didn't sign it Love, Dad. Just his name. Douglas. And yet, it felt more honest than any love you I'd received in years. I didn't reply that night. I let his words sit with me like the tea, warm but bitter at the bottom. Instead, I stood on the balcony of my hotel and looked out at the river. The wind had picked up. Somewhere out there, a family trip was unraveling under the weight of unspoken truths. And here I was, alone, yes, but not lonely. Because this city, this moment, this version of myself, it was finally mine. 2 days into my Kyoto stay, the rhythm of my trip had become its own quiet symphony. Morning photography walks, afternoon cafe stops, evening blog uploads. The solitude no longer felt like absence, it felt like arrival. I wasn't reporting to anyone, answering to any expectations. I was simply being. And in that stillness, something began to shift. Not in the world, but inside me. That morning, I visited Kyoto, the historic district known for its cobbled alleys and elusive glimpses of geisha. I wandered without destination, camera in hand, capturing slivers of old Japan. Crimson parasols, faded wood storefronts, the faint click of traditional sandals on stone. Lost in focus, I almost didn't hear the voice. Jenna Rowe. I turned sharply. A man stood a few steps away, late 30s, camera bag slung across his shoulder. His accent was British, his expression unsure. You don't know me, he added quickly, holding up his phone. But I know your work. I blinked, still caught between surprise and skepticism. I read your blog, he continued. I'm a travel editor. We've been following your posts at Nomadic Lens. When I saw your Kyoto story yesterday, I thought, wait, I'm in the same city. And then, well, here you are. I didn't know whether to laugh or freeze. I settled somewhere in between. You just recognized me? He nodded sheepishly. You photograph like a local, but write like a poet. And not many people look that present when they shoot. I took a chance. His name was Elliot. We walked and talked for hours after that, about framing, pacing, story structure, and the strange intimacy of being seen through words. He'd read my Whistler post too. He didn't pry, but he did ask the kind of questions that left room for truth. That afternoon, he offered something I didn't expect, a collaboration. We're doing a winter issue featuring solo travelers who've redefined home, he said. I think your voice belongs in it. I hesitated. What if I'm not what your readers want? Then our readers don't deserve you, he said simply. Later that night, after uploading my next batch of photos, Kyoto in golden hour, silent and cinematic, I checked my inbox. There it was, a formal invitation from Nomadic Lens to contribute to their February spread. My heart pounded, not with fear, but with recognition. 4 years, I'd waited for my family to see me, to notice that I had more to offer than availability. But maybe the validation I'd been craving wasn't meant to come from people who only saw me in moments of need. I was still riding that wave of clarity when I got a video message from home. It was Tessa, looking uncharacteristically disheveled, with Rocket in her lap. Mom left, she said flatly. Booked herself into a hotel downtown. Said she couldn't relax with strangers taking care of the dogs. Dad's furious. I think the trip's officially ruined. I waited, wondering if she'd follow it with a guilt trip. But instead, her tone shifted. Jenna, I looked through your blog again. Like, really looked. I didn't know you were this. The way you see things. The way you capture silence and still make it feel loud. She paused. I used to think you were the boring one. The background. But I was wrong. You're not background, Jenna. You're the whole scene. I stared at the screen long after the video ended. Her words weren't an apology. Not yet. But they were something better. They were the beginning of acknowledgement. I stepped out onto my balcony, camera in hand, and captured the moment. No filter. No staging. Just the city breathing around me. And for the first time, I believed what my lens had been showing all along. I wasn't the extra in someone else's story. I was the story. It was raining in Kyoto the next morning. Gentle, persistent, the kind of rain that didn't rush you indoors but instead softened the edges of the world. I walked under a borrowed clear umbrella through the quiet lanes of Nanzenji, the ancient temple grounds glazed in silver mist. Every stone step glistened. Every tree leaned slightly, as if listening. The temple bell rang once, low and slow, vibrating in my chest like a distant memory. The silence wasn't empty. It felt honest, like it had finally decided to speak in its own language. That afternoon, I posted a new entry. Asterisk, let the silence say it first. Asterisk, it was a collection of moments from the temple grounds. No dramatic revelations, just fragments of a day lived slowly. I didn't mention my family. I didn't need to. Somehow readers knew. Under the post, hundreds of comments poured in. This is the most peaceful thing I've read all year. I sent this to my mom. We haven't talked in weeks. Thank you. You made me want to pack a bag. And then, tucked among them, one I recognized immediately. Douglas Rowe. Your eye for light reminds me of your grandfather. He would have loved these shots. I wish I'd said that sooner. My fingers froze above the keyboard. I hadn't thought of Grandpa Marvin in years. His old Nikon camera, the way he used to squint into the sun, framing shots of lakes and fishing trips. He was the first person who handed me a camera at age 9 and said, "Now show me how you see the world." I didn't reply to Dad's comment. But I did scroll back through old blog posts, realizing how many of those moments, quiet ones, observational ones, were shaped by Marvin's early influence. My family may not have remembered, but I had carried it all this time. Later that evening, as I ate alone in a tiny izakaya tucked between two residential buildings, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mother. A voice message. I hesitated, then pressed play. Hi. Jenna. I know you probably don't want to hear from me right now. And maybe I deserve that. I just wanted to say, I saw your blog today. And yesterday. And the day before that. I've seen all of it now. Every photo. Every word. I think I kept pretending you weren't serious about it because, if I admitted how good you are, I'd have to admit how much I ignored it. She sighed. Tessa says you're working with a magazine. That's incredible. You deserve every bit of it. And I know I've made it about the dogs and the guilt and the plans. But the truth is, I think I was scared. That you didn't need us anymore. That you were outgrowing us. And maybe, I didn't want to feel left behind. The message ended. No apology. No requests. Just a crack in the fortress she'd always lived behind. I let the silence sit with me as I finished my grilled tofu and sipped hot sake. Outside, the rain had stopped. The street shimmered under lantern light, and somewhere down the alley, someone was playing soft jazz from a second-floor window. I stood at the edge of it all, in a city that had become a mirror, not of who I used to be, but who I was finally allowing myself to become. And that night, for the first time in my life, I slept without setting an alarm. The world would wait. Because for once, I didn't owe it an explanation. 3 days before I was scheduled to fly home, a knock sounded at the front desk of my hotel just as I was returning from a sunrise shoot along the Kamo River. The concierge bowed politely, holding out a small package wrapped in soft blue paper. "This arrived for you this morning," he said. "From Canada." Surprised, I took it to my room, setting down my camera before unwrapping it carefully. Inside was a padded lens pouch, and within that, a brand new 50mm lens. The one I'd saved for months to buy. The exact one I'd mentioned in passing on my blog post 3 weeks earlier. Tucked underneath was a handwritten note in my father's careful script. Asterisk, your sister showed me the post about the lighting issues in low contrast. Thought this might help. I don't always know how to say the right thing, Jenna, but I want you to know I see what you're doing. We all do now. Douglas, asterisk. Not Dad. Not, love you. Just Douglas. Still him. Still guarded. But I read more in those few lines than in any holiday card he'd given me for a decade. I attached the lens to my camera and stepped back outside. That day, I wandered Kyoto like I was seeing it for the first time. Through that new lens, the world felt closer. More intimate. A girl tying a wish to a temple tree. A baker handing warm melon bread to a boy in mittens. The reflection of red maple leaves in a koi pond. I documented it all, and that night, posted the set under the title asterisk, the gift I never asked for. Asterisk. The photo series went viral. Not internet viral in the flashy sense, but quietly, emotionally. It was shared by art communities, photography forums, and travel circles. I woke to an inbox flooded with letters. Not comments. Letters. Stories of estranged parents, overlooked daughters, artists who had walked away from recognition to protect their peace. One email stood out. From Tessa. Subject line, "You win." Asterisk. Okay, so it's not a competition. But I used to treat everything like it was one. You were always the reliable one, the background character in my highlight reel. And now I see, you were building something this whole time. A life. A voice. And you did it without demanding applause. Asterisk. Asterisk, Mom's trying to tell people she helped plan your trip. But I called her out. I told her she doesn't get to rewrite it now that it's popular. You wrote this story. Not her. Asterisk. Asterisk. You're coming back soon, I know. And I want to see you. Not for Mom. Not for the dogs. For me. I want to hear more about how you took that shot of the girl and the temple tree. It made me cry. You made me cry, Jenna. Asterisk. I read it 3 times. Then I sat on the floor of my room, overwhelmed not by sadness, but by the strange sweetness of finally being seen. Not because I had changed, but because I had stopped shrinking. That night, I printed 3 of my photos at a local shop. I framed them with thin, black borders. One for Tessa. One for Dad. And the last, my favorite, the girl and the temple tree, I addressed to Mom. No letter. No caption. Just the photo. A moment captured in silence. A gift she hadn't asked for. The flight back to Vancouver landed in a pale morning fog. The cold bit through my coat as I stepped off the plane, but I welcomed it. Kyoto's warmth had settled in my bones, and no airport chill could undo what I'd found. Still, I braced myself for what waited at home, not just the weather, but the weight of reconnection. Mrs. Lau greeted me at my apartment with a warm smile and a folder of notes. Rocket and Mango had been, in her words, angels with opinions. She handed me a small envelope. From your mother, she said. She stopped by yesterday. Didn't stay long. Inside the envelope was a note, typed on her usual monogrammed stationery. Asterisk, thank you for arranging everything. I've seen your photos. They're beautiful. I'm trying to say less and see more. It's hard. But I'm trying. Asterisk. No signature. No love, Mom. But it wasn't silence. It was something closer to vulnerability. That Sunday, I went to the weekly family dinner. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't dreading the knock on their front door. I carried nothing but a small USB drive and the framed photograph I'd addressed to my mother, the girl and the temple tree. The house looked the same, but felt different. The usual chaos buzzed through the rooms. Dishes clinking, Rocket barking from the laundry room, Tessa's laughter trailing behind her. But something had shifted. They had all seen the blog now. That much was clear from the way Dad met me at the door, nervous but oddly proud, holding it open like I was a guest of honor. "Dinner's almost ready," he said. "We saved your seat." I walked in and handed the photo to my mother without a word. She studied it for a long time. Her eyes glistened, but she said nothing, just nodded once, and carried it into the dining room like it was something delicate. The meal began quietly. No one mentioned the trip. No one asked about Japan. But then, as the plates were cleared, my father pulled out his phone. "So," he said, clearing his throat, "I left my first blog comment last week." The entire table paused. Tessa blinked. "You, what?" He shrugged. It was under her photo set. The one with the temple bell. I said it reminded me of Grandpa Marvin. I nearly dropped my fork. "That was you." He nodded. "I don't know much about lighting or aperture, but I know what a quiet moment looks like. And that photo, it felt like Marvin was standing behind you." The room fell still. Even my mother looked up. Tessa broke the silence. "I didn't know Grandpa took photos." "He did," I said. "He gave me my first camera." Dad smiled. "I kept that old Nikon. I'll dig it out for you." Then, without warning, Tessa turned her phone toward me. "Your temple tree photo? It's my lock screen. It's the only thing that makes me breathe when the studio gets too loud." My throat tightened. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she replied. "You've been saying it with every post." Mom reached for the serving bowl, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it at that table. "I asked Mrs. Lau to teach me how to use your blog. I've been reading everything. I haven't commented yet. I didn't know if I'd be welcome." I looked at her. For once, not waiting for permission to speak. "It's not about being welcome," I said. "It's about showing up." The room sat with those words. No one interrupted. No one changed the subject. And then Dad, with that same nervous pride, said, "So, what's next?" "More travel. Another story." I smiled. "Actually, yes. Italy. A photo workshop next spring. Nomadic Lens is sending me." Tessa clapped. Mom exhaled. And for the first time in my life, the table wasn't a place where I felt unseen. Because that night, I wasn't the background. I wasn't the dog sitter. I wasn't the one filling in the gaps. I was Jenna Rowe. Storyteller. Photographer. And finally, someone worth listening to. The camera was heavier than I remembered. The Nikon FM2, my grandfather's old film body, rested in my hands like an heirloom that had been waiting patiently to return. My dad had cleaned it, polished the metal with care, even found a roll of expired film. "Let's see what kind of stories it still wants to tell," he'd said. It was raining again in Vancouver, but it felt different this time. Not a melancholy grey, but a reflective one. I took the old camera out with me, walking to the same cafe I'd used to hide in on family holidays. This time, I wasn't hiding. I was remembering. I snapped one frame, a girl behind foggy glass, sipping coffee alone. Another, a couple sharing an umbrella, laughing in step. And one more, the reflection of myself in the cafe window, framed by city lights. For once, I didn't look tired. I didn't look overlooked. I looked steady. That afternoon, I posted my final Kyoto entry. Titled, Framed by Light. It was a quiet goodbye to the city that had given me back to myself. The post wasn't dramatic. It was a thank you note in photos, shrine gates, temple trees, crooked alleys bathed in dusk. But what made it different was the final image. My mother, standing in front of the photo I'd given her, hanging in the dining room. She didn't know I'd taken it. But I had. She was adjusting the frame with both hands, leaning in close, lips pursed in thought. Like someone seeing art for the first time and realizing the artist had been in her house all along. The comments on that post came fast. Never cried over a photo until today. You gave me the courage to book my own trip. Thank you. My mom saw this. We talked for the first time in a year. And then, buried in the middle of it all, a username I didn't recognize. Emma_goldenlight. Sometimes the background is where the light lives. We just forget to look. I knew it was Dad. The blog had changed everything, but it hadn't changed me. Not really. It had revealed me, to them, yes, but more importantly, to myself. At Thanksgiving, they asked me to take the family portrait. For the first time in years, I agreed. I set up the camera, lined the frame, checked the light. But instead of using the timer, I handed the shutter remote to Tessa. You do it, I said. I want to be in this one. She grinned. About time. Click. One photo. One moment. Jenna Rowe, front and center, not for approval, not for praise, but because it was her place, too. And just like that, I wasn't the one behind the scenes anymore. I was the frame. Spring arrived early in Vancouver that year. The cherry blossoms bloomed a week ahead of schedule, scattering soft petals across sidewalks like confetti left behind from an unseen celebration. I stood beneath a blooming tree near Granville Island, camera around my neck, watching families pass by, laughter spilling through the breeze, dogs tugging at their leashes, toddlers pointing at pigeons. 6 months had passed since Kyoto. 6 months since I stopped waiting to be invited. Since I claimed the story as mine. The Italy workshop was just weeks away, but I wasn't rushing toward it. I was growing into it. This time, I wasn't chasing a way out. I was stepping into something bigger, something earned. At home, our family rhythm had changed. Not drastically, but enough. My mother now followed my blog publicly, leaving brief but sincere comments. Stunning composition, she'd write. Reminds me of Venice in the 70s. Her tone had shifted from critique to curiosity. She even asked questions now. Real ones. About exposure, about travel, about where I'd go next. My dad became my unofficial tech support. He bought a used DSLR for himself and sent me weekly photos, out-of-focus sunrises, oddly cropped ducks, blurry cityscapes. But he always tried. Be gentle, he'd text before sending them. Still learning. And Tessa. Well, Tessa surprised me the most. She hosted her first photography exhibit at her yoga studio last month. Not her own work. Mine. She printed 20 of my photos, framed them, and displayed them with handwritten notes beneath each one. Curated by my sister, the sign read. The one who sees what we miss. I arrived just before opening, and she met me with a sheepish grin. People need to see what I see in you, she said. What I didn't see before. We didn't hug. Not then. We didn't need to. Because healing isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's an echo in a gallery. A photograph on a wall. A shared moment in silence. One evening as I sat editing the final touches on my Italy itinerary, a notification popped up. An email from Nomadic Lens. They wanted me to guest edit a seasonal feature. Title: Asterisk, The New Narrative. Asterisk, a curated collection of artists who had reclaimed their voices, stepped out of the background, and started telling their own stories. They asked if I'd contribute not just photographs, but words. I stared at the email for a long time, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I replied, asterisk, I'll do it. But only if I can include one more perspective. Asterisk. The next day, I called my mother. I asked if she'd write a short piece, for the feature, about what it felt like to witness someone else's story change. To realize you weren't the main character in it. To understand you may have missed chapters, but you could still show up for the ending. She didn't answer right away. But a week later, her draft arrived. It wasn't perfect. It didn't pretend the past hadn't happened. But it ended with a sentence that caught me off guard. Asterisk, I always thought I was the narrator in our family. Turns out, I was just listening to the wrong voice. Asterisk. The magazine ran the piece. Side by side. My photographs. Her words. Not as a reconciliation. As a new chapter. Later that spring, when I boarded my flight to Italy, I didn't look back. Not because I wanted to leave them behind, but because, finally, I knew they'd still be there when I returned. Not to hold me down, but to welcome me home. To the story we were learning to write together.